Hi, this is the voice of Heidie Calero with another economic capsule on the Puerto Rico economy. Don't forget, those of you who follow us in YouTube under the voice of Heidie Calero, to give us a like in those economic capsules that are of interest to you and to suggest topics that would be interesting to forecast or at least to analyze in future capsules. Today we are going to talk about the impact of economic projections, which is not just something that is very flimsy or that it is unimportant. And unfortunately, it is so important that it will affect your life and my life as a taxpayer in Puerto Rico. Let's look at the first graph that we have here with the GNP growth for fiscal year 2021, which runs from July 1st through June 30th of 2021. Puerto Rico Planning Board, the Agency of Financial, the Fiscal Agency and Financial Advisory Authority, and then the Fiscal Oversight and Management Board, better known as PROMESA Board. These three sources have given us their estimates of the fiscal year GNP growth in nominal terms and in real terms and inflation using an implicit price deflator for the GNP. Well, Puerto Rico Planning Board, the agency that is the custodian of all the national accounts in Puerto Rico, forecasted negative 2% real growth. So continued negative growth in the island, and the implicit price deflator already tells you inflation higher, 2.7%. You add these two together and it gives you the nominal GNP growth of 0.7% in that fiscal year. In that same year, the agency, AFAF, forecasted negative 3.6% growth. So again, more negative than the Puerto Rico Planning Board, but lower inflation, 0.7%. As a result, the nominal GNP is negative 2.86% because it forecasted a very negative real GNP growth. And let's look at PROMESA Board. Well, understandably, or at least inconceivably, the forecast of the fiscal board says, no, Puerto Rico is not going to be negative growth. It's going to post positive growth of 3.8%, in contrast with AFAF and in contrast with the Puerto Rico Planning Board. And inflation is still very moderate, 0.3%, so nominal GNP growth is going to be 4.1%. Why is this so important? Because we will tie all this capsule with fiscal revenues at the end. Let's look at fiscal year 2022. Puerto Rico Planning Board forecasted positive growth of 0.8%, a very meager real economic growth, and inflation higher, 3%. So the addition, the sum of those two gives us the nominal GNP growth of 3.8%. The AFAF, the fiscal agency in Puerto Rico, gives us a real growth of 1.7%, and GNP nominal GNP with an inflation of 1.1% of 2.83%. And the Oversight Board, or PROMESA Board, also forecasted positive growth of 1.5% in real terms, an inflation of 1.1%, similar to AFAF, and this gives you a nominal growth of 2.6%. Let's add all this in the mix with what is happening with the population in Puerto Rico. And why is that important? Because population will impact the labor force. And if population is declining and the labor force is also declining and declining even further, which is the case, what is happening right now, labor force growth in Puerto Rico is even more negative than the negative growth in population overall. And that is very bad for Puerto Rico, with only a 40% participation in the labor force of the population 16 years and older. Well, Census 2020 said that Puerto Rico, this red bar that you see here in 2020, gave us 3,286,000 people in the island in 2020. AFAF had forecasted that it would be 3,185,000. That's almost 40,000 lower level than the census of 2020. But the Oversight Board forecasted 3,033,000 33,000 people. That is almost 250,000 people lower than what the census really indicated. So it's really a very strange model in terms of these forecasts. And it gets even more stranger. In 2021, we have for AFAF 3,170,000, whereas using the rate of growth of census 2010 through 2020, it will be 3,245,000, so higher than what AFAF says, but even higher than what the PROMESA board says with 2,976,000. That's almost 160,000 people lower than what is forecasted for 2021. And it's the same story here in 2022. 2,928,000 by the Fiscal Oversight Board against 3,204,000. That's almost 300,000 people lower. What does that imply? Well, if you have a lower population, you should have lower fiscal revenues. But what happens here with all these forecasts? Well, in 2021, the Puerto Rico Planning Board using fiscal revenues as a function of GNP, nominal GNP growth, would give us a forecast of $11.0 billion. Well, in 2022, $12.8 billion, because after all, the GNP in nominal terms is growing according to the forecast of the Puerto Rico Planning Board, but Planning Board does not forecast population. So let's look at the AFAF and Fiscal Oversight Board. Well, in 2021, the AFAF said it would be $15.8 billion, even though it has a lower population than what it was set by census. But worse still, it has just a nominal GNP growth negative 2.8%. But compare that with 2022 when it said, oh, GNP is going to be, in nominal terms, it's going to be higher, 2.8%. However, the revenues were lower, so an inconsistency in these forecasts. And look at PROMESA board. Oh, they said, well, in 2021 it would be 4.1% nominal GNP growth, and the population is so low that it's very difficult to see how that relationship really jives. But in 2022, they forecasted that the nominal growth would be lower than in 2021, and yet the fiscal revenues are higher. You have to wonder if the service of the public debt, the one with which we are negotiating this debt adjustment that is going to be submitted to the Judge Taylor Swain in the bankruptcy court, is going to be predicated on economic growth, on really the fiscal revenues. You as a creditor, you like to see fiscal revenues higher. What is the Fiscal Oversight Board doing? It's saying, oh, the forecast is going to be higher, so yes, you creditor, you should get more money. However, if fiscal revenues were lower, then you require more of an adjustment in principle. So wonder, you as a taxpayer, what do you think would be best for Puerto Rico? These forecasts which are inconsistent with the reality that we are living, or this pie in the sky with all these projections that we don't know what goes into these black boxes? Until the next capsule, stay safe. Thank you.